Hey, this is Alan again, here to show you the next step of the Sigp250 takedown. Not a lot of time for this video, so I gotta be kind of quick about it. The gun is already taken apart. This is the slide of the gun. Now, to take out the firing pin, the first step is to drive out this roll pin just in front of the rear sight. So you have to flip it upside down. You can see the slide where it slides inside. This is right above the firing pin here. Just inside the slot is a roll pin. Now I've managed to find the smallest pin punch, which is a 1/16 pin punch. It's very small and it's very easy to bend, so you need to be careful with them. And you need a hammer. I bought this little hammer, Harbor Freight, like $4, and you have to tap out the roll pin. So what I'm going to do is, you can see that it's right there, it's pointed right on it, it's actually sitting on it, and I'm going to tap the roll pin out. So I'm just going to hit it. Drive that pin out. Should come out. If it doesn't come out, just keep hitting it. There it is. The pin rolled out, goes in. You can see the punch went through the top, and I'm going to drop that out. And now there's just pretty much a hole straight through, which allows the firing pin to come out. But in order to get it all the way out, you have to push the drop safety. There's a drop safety on this gun, which doesn't allow the firing pin to come all the way through the front if you drop the gun for any reason and set off a bullet, which you don't want to do. So there's a little button right here. You can see it's right there. Right here. It's just on the right side of the gun. Actually up and down, so if you flip it over, it's still on the right side. So what you want to do is put your finger here, because the pin is going to shoot out, and when you push it, you're going to see the pin come up. Right there, it popped out. Now you have to remove the firing pin, but the drop safety will catch on the spring, so you have to push in the drop safety button, push it in, and draw the firing pin out. And there's the spring, which sits on the front of the firing pin. That is done. That's the hardest part when it comes to putting it back together, so you have to be very careful. The next step is to remove the rear sight by pushing in on this pin, which is also channeled through the slide, channels through the slide to the extractor, which extracts the shell, the empty casing, from the chamber once the gun is cycled. Well, has fired and then has cycled. In its cycling, that's the little claw that grabs that little groove in the bullet and extracts it from the chamber. So if this is damaged or anything, we have to replace it. So pretty much what you do, you don't have to drive on this. This is just a tension thing. You just push on this button right here. Just go ahead and push it in upside down. Just push, and you can remove the rear sight. There it is. And there's a little pin here that comes out with it. Sits on the back, which bends over the rear sight, so you have to make sure that goes back. That is actually the drop safety itself, and there's a little spring. So don't go crazy when you see these little parts come out, because they only go together one way. So it's very self-explanatory. I didn't need really any help at all when it came to taking this apart. That is the drop safety that we pushed on. You can see it from the side. There it is, right there. And this is actually the rear sight of the gun. Now what we need to do is remove this pin. It's actually held in by the rear sight. You have to pull it out. There's a spring there, and there's a groove here. You can see that. Now the extractor should just come right out. It should just pretty much fall out. Turn it on its side, and here we have the extractor. Pretty simple. It can be hard if you don't take your time and if you don't understand it. So now we're going to put this all back together after we've cleaned it, replaced parts, etc. So it just goes in sideways, the same way it should look. And there's a groove on this, and it has to go with it on its side down. The groove has to go on top. The biggest, longest part has to go up top, and that all goes back. Now the tricky part is balancing this spring on top of the drop safety, which is right here in my fingers, on the back sight, and putting it into the gun while pushing in the extractor pin. Now to do this, you have to start with the spring. The spring sits on the back like this. You can see it there, sitting on the back, and the drop safety goes on the rear sight. This is all part of the rear sight here, and it sits back just like that. It goes together pretty much the only way it can go together. You can't really put it together a different way, so don't fear that. And what I do is you have to turn the gun up, so to speak, the front of the gun is aimed up, so this is all sitting on the rear slide, and get it started into the rear of the gun. You gotta be really easy with it, otherwise you'll be starting all over again. And just get it started. See if I can. There it is. It's started now. So it's sitting in the back of the gun pretty up. So it's not down in there yet. It's sitting popped up. Now what we have to do is get all this to go back. Is to push in. I gotta push in on the drop safety so it doesn't catch on the top of the gun. Like that. And now we have to push in on the extractor, which is popped out. So you just push it in all the way. Be careful not to slip with it, and bam, there it is. It's back together. The rear sight is back, and the pin is now under pressure. This extractor is under spring pressure, so it has a little forgiveness to it. And the rear sight is back in. These are fixed sights, so you don't have to worry about destroying your sights as far as them being adjusted, because they just go right back together. Now the second step is to replace the firing pin. As you can see, the drop safety is part of the rear sight. This is actually all the rear sight fixture, and you have to push this back in here. There it is. So it works. And you're gonna make sure it doesn't get stuck. It seems to be free. There's a little ear inside. You'll be able to see it. I have horrible light, and you can actually see it. If you look, you can see it go in and come out. So you have to make sure this is pressed in. And the next important part is there's a groove on the firing pin on this side. It's only on one side. So when you push in the drop safety, I'm using my thumb, I have a small thumb, so you have to make sure that that groove is very lined up for when you tap in the roll pin. I kind of overturn it a little bit and going ahead and push in the firing pin and lift up on the drop safety. Now it's pretty much back. Now the next step is to flip over the gun, get the roll pin started at the top. It's sticking out the top, and now you have to push in on the firing pin and tap in very carefully so you don't scratch the top of the gun. You have to tap that pin back in. So as you can see, it started, and then you take the pin punch and finish it off so you don't scratch the top of your gun. These guns are satin finish. And tap it all the way in, and you can hear the difference when it hits the bottom. Go on ahead and test the firing pin, make sure it pushes in and releases. Check the drop safety, make sure it presses in, releases, and when it's pressed in, I'm going to go on ahead and use a match for this, but you have to hold the drop safety down and check the firing pin and make sure that it comes out the front, which is right behind where the bullet is, because the drop safety will hold the firing pin away from the bullet unless it is pressed. There's a steel plate on this side where the trigger is, and its job is to push. You can see it right here. It's black steel. It comes up and pushes the drop safety and allows the firing pin to access the bullet. So you have to make sure that that is pressed in all the way. Make sure the roll pin is all the way through the slide, otherwise it won't fit. It won't work for you. And you have to make sure that the firing pin is lined up with the groove in the, what is it? It's the right side of the gun, so the fucking roll pin will go through. Otherwise you'll be doing it over and over again. So that is the most complex thing to this gun, is taking out that firing pin and removing the extractor and the rear sight. I hope this gives you an idea on how to remove pretty much everything, all the guts inside of the slide itself, which is only the firing pin, the rear sight, extractor, and drop safety. Hope you enjoyed the video, and to reassemble this gun you can watch the part 1 to this, and I will explain how to take all this and put it back together. Hope you enjoyed the video and have a good day.